Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. We'll be presenting the Qualys Cloud Platform presented by IntegraONE. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me. My name is Kayal. I'm the Director of Security with IntegraONE. I have some of my certifications listed here, alphabet soup, most notably EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker, Security Analyst, Fortinet NSE4, and Cisco CCNP. So here at IntegraONE, we don't sell boxes, we sell solutions. We cover everything from desktop to data center. And we're one of those partners where we're in it for the long haul. We're not just in for the one-time engagements. We like to build up our relationships and stay by your side, until the end. We've been in business for over 30 years. We have 5 offices spread across the entire state of Pennsylvania, covering just about every angle, and we support commercial, healthcare, state and local government, higher education, K through 12. Ooh. Also check your inbox, most notably the spam folder, just in case. We sent you a Grubhub gift certificate this morning so you can enjoy a meal on us. So make sure that you've received the message. If not, maybe check the spam folder, and if it still isn't showing up, shoot us an email after the webinar. We'll take care of it for you. All right, so today we're going to be covering the Qualys Cloud Platform. And the idea is building an efficient vulnerability management program. So here's the agenda. Purpose of today's webinar, we're going to give a Qualys overview, also an overview of the cloud platform, their new solution, VMDR. We'll get into some typical questions and answers for use case scenarios, and then we'll wrap up with questions and answers at the end of the webinar. So before diving in, the purpose of today's webinar, it's really focused around the idea of building an efficient vulnerability management program. So time and time again, we'll hop on calls, with clients, we'll have conversations, and we'll hit a few different scenarios, but the common theme there is really how do we build a program to address vulnerabilities, take care of the remediation, and make it a streamlined, ongoing process. Typical conversations might roll in where, hey, we're getting ready for compliance. We've got a SOX audit that we're preparing for. How can we make sure everything's safe and secure, before the auditors arrive? Or, another scenario might be, hey, we'd like to engage in a one-time assessment, scan for and address all of our vulnerabilities, take care of patching. And that kind of leads into, instead of attacking it from a one-time engagement or perspective, how can we actually put these tools in place and in your hands to make this, a streamlined and efficient process for you to manage on your own, right? So a lot of the key points here I'm going to address today are asset management, right? The visibility, knowing all your known and unknown assets, vulnerability management, so the ability to discover all the vulnerabilities, to address them. Threat risk and prioritization. So, moving into remediation, how do we effectively address them, at a certain risk level, to prioritize them for the last component, patch management. So actually performing the remediation and pushing out the patches, to ensure all the vulnerabilities are addressed. So without further ado, who is Qualys? Let's give an overview. Qualys claims to be the leading provider of information security and compliance cloud solutions. I tend to agree, that's why we chose to partner with them. Hence the webinar here where we'll cover all their solutions. They were founded in 1999 as one of the first software as a service security companies. So what does that mean for you? It's a very mature company. They've been leading the vulnerability management for decades, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Some wow factor here, over 15,000 global customers, a good majority of the, the Forbes Global 50, the 100. And I got a couple of screenshots here for some of their customers, really big names: Oracle, McDonald's, Cisco, Capital One. jelly belly just because, hey, let's add a little sweetness to the webinar, right? In one way or another, these companies, they do utilize Qualys as a part of their security program. So let's dive in here. Qualys Cloud Platform, what is it? It provides continuous assessment of global IT security and compliance posture. So for today's webinar, we're really just scratching the surface of what Qualys offers. So these core components, this is really what I'm going to focus on today. So we've got the cloud-based management console, the cloud applications, and then cloud agents or virtual sensors. Qualys offers a lot of additional applications, for cloud integration, for compliance modules. So again, we're scratching the surface today. This is going to be my focal point. So moving right along these cloud applications, powerful natively integrated security and compliance apps. We can consider these to be licensed features or add-on modules. You can quote, purchase, and add these to your subscription as needed. So to the side here, the asset management, asset inventory, definitely going to focus here because this is a key component for visibility in a vulnerability management program. And then again, more applications with a lot of the focus being security driven. I'm going to dive into vulnerability management, threat protection, and patch management. We'll cover those in detail. And that third piece, so the cloud agents. So what are the agents? It's a software package that installs on laptops, desktops, servers, virtual machines, mobile devices. It enables global visibility in seconds. So you have a lightweight agent installed that's continuously collecting data, and it's sending that data up to the cloud platform. So this is really your source of intelligence on all of your assets. Very minimal footprint. And when I say minimal, off to the side here, we're utilizing about 50 to 350 kilobytes per day of network traffic. It's about 1 to 2%, CPU cycles at any given moment, and about 3 megabytes of memory. Very lightweight, and again, it provides intelligence for the cloud application. So the cloud agent is going to take inventory of the asset and communicate with vulnerability management, threat protection, policy compliance if you have these modules, the asset inventory, file integrity monitoring, indicators of compromise. This is really the source of intelligence here. Now I've noted no scan windows needed, always collecting data. So the agent also acts as somewhat of a lightweight vulnerability scanner. So now that we're collecting all this data in real time, there's no purpose, there's no reason to perform manual vulnerability scans. We already have all the data continually going up to the cloud console in real time. No reason to scan these agents after the fact. And what does that mean for you? You're going to detect and remediate the vulnerabilities faster. The cloud agent, where does this fit very nicely? Remote systems, branch offices, work from home, location doesn't matter. It communicates over the internet, TCP 443 up to the console. So, typically no firewall modifications are necessary. So the cloud agent's definitely a huge piece of the solution here. All right, diving into the applications. First one I wanted to highlight here is asset inventory. So we talked about the cloud agents and the data that it's sending up to the cloud. So what is that actual intelligence? Well, you get your operating system, network information, the geolocation based on the IP address, what software is installed on the asset and the life cycle, does it have end of life software installed, does this need to be addressed? And then also that security tab. So if you look to the right there, I've highlighted vulnerabilities, threat protection, and patch management. So a cool feature of the asset inventory is, and you'll see this in the upcoming slides, is I can get the vulnerability status directly from the application. I can also dive into the asset itself if I want to look on a per asset basis, right, and get that vulnerability info. Likewise, the threat protection or patch management. If I want to see what patches are available for this specific asset, I can do that, directly from the inventory. All right, moving along to the second application here, vulnerability management, detect and protect. So again, agent-based detection, we're utilizing that cloud agent. We're eliminating scanning maintenance windows, credentials, and firewall exclusions. So there's no reason to perform a manual vulnerability scan. We're constantly getting that data up to the cloud. We know exactly what vulnerabilities exist on the asset, and where to go from there. For devices that cannot take an agent installation, your more traditional infrastructure devices, switches, routers, wireless, IT, OT devices, things of that nature, we can deploy an on-prem virtual scanner. So it's a lightweight VM. You would sync it up to the cloud console, and then you could use that for traditional, vulnerability scanning. There's numerous built-in reporting templates, a whole plethora of them. So off to the right here, I've got a vulnerability scorecard report, executive summary, which is more graph and summarized, all the way down to high severity or full technical reports, PCI reports, very, very detailed data. They do an excellent job in covering the threat, the impact, the solution, very detailed. They map to the CVEs and the CVSSs, a lot of detailed explanation there in the technical reports. And another slide here of vulnerability management. So I apologize that the slide's a little messy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of data and a lot of information to cram into, a quick webinar, but I definitely wanted to pull up some different screenshots here. So off to the right, you've got the vulnerability management console. This is the default dashboard. And a lot of these dashboards can be edited inside of the console. So you can customize and create, the way that you want to see the data. And you can see here's the total of new vulnerabilities, active vulnerabilities, how many have been fixed, right? So how many you've been remediating along the way. It keeps track of that intel for you. Now on the left-hand side, that kind of goes hand in hand with what I was mentioning about the asset. So I can dive directly into the assets itself, click on the vulnerabilities, and see all the data associated with it. Likewise, I could filter down to severity 5 or severity 4 and filter out those specific vulnerabilities. So a lot of different ways to access the data here. All right, threat protection. So pinpoint the most critical threats and prioritize patching. Threat protection, one of the biggest features here that Qualys offers, highly attractive, live threat intelligence feed. So ask yourself, how many of you, log in the morning, hop on the web, and you're checking your, your feeds, the security feeds, whether they be, US CERT, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, maybe you're browsing around Cisco Talos, you're searching all the feeds manually, right, to get the most up-to-date data. Maybe you're logging into Wired, reading the news, trying to correlate, all the active, threats that have recently emerged to, put together a plan of things that you want to look into, make sure they're not impacting your own network. So the threat protection module, it offers that live threat intelligence feed where, you've got Qualys security engineers that are analyzing external resources and then also their own internal research. And then they're populating it into the feed here for you. So you kind of got a one-stop shop. Another key feature is that it displays the latest security disclosures and it's actually mapping them to your impacted assets. So not only do you know what's hot to trot and actively running around in the wild, but you know exactly which of your assets are directly impacted by the threat. So this is correlating those external threats with your asset inventory. A lot of powerful searching is included here. So there's on the default page, I could actually search by which of my assets have a threat with a public exploit that's available. Or maybe I want to search for the assets that if exploited, they're associated with high lateral movement. A lot of really detailed data here at your disposal, inside of this module, mapping to your assets. And again, a couple more screenshots here. So I wanted to highlight the live feed. these are all highly rated, meaning, high severity, medium severity, and lower. These are all the newer exploits and vulnerabilities that are out there. And then off to the right, so, kind of what I was mentioning about searching, what has an active attack, denial of service, how many of my assets are, impacted by denial of service vulnerabilities, which ones are easy exploitable, which ones are associated with high data loss, etc. The reason behind this is let's identify which of our assets have active threats. We want to prioritize our patching strategy here, right? So, if I've got a web server, with an active vulnerability associated, mean that it's at risk, especially if the web server port that's affected by it, or that port is filtered on the firewall. So that might actually move lower on my totem pole, as opposed to an actual vulnerability that's associated with an asset, and there is a high probability that it could be exploited. Years ago, there were a lot of SSL VPN bugs running around, and the actual vulnerability itself was rated as a medium level. But if you think about it, SSL VPN is associated with a firewall, right? Firewall is publicly facing, so you have all these firewalls, with vulnerabilities that are exposed to the public internet. So really, that medium level should have been higher up on the food chain as a part of the patching plan. So, threat protection is really going to help you here in prioritizing, your strategy, so you move into the patching phase. And then last but not least, patch management. Streamline and accelerate remediation of all assets. So Qualys is very unique in that it has built-in patch management. So you can actually deploy the patches directly from the Qualys console. Qualys serves them directly to the agents via API. So those cloud agents that you installed on the machines, right, they're receiving updates and saying, hey, retrieve this patch, install it. Now, a key thing to note here is that it doesn't just do operating systems, it also does third-party applications. So I'm not only, keeping up to date with, say, the Windows security feed, I'm also, actively patching, an Oracle Java vulnerability. Automated correlation of the vulnerability and patch data. So again, all these modules, they work in conjunction with one another. We have all that intelligence about the threat, which assets associated with it. Same thing with the patches. If I look up a certain threat in the protection feed, I can also see that there's, 10 assets associated with it, that moves into the patch management module. Patch using the cloud agent, again, remote or on-prem, the location doesn't matter. Being a cloud-based solution, this is going to communicate with the agent over the internet no matter where it is. You don't have to worry about consuming VPN bandwidth or requiring a standalone patch management system. Now, I will note that as of today, the patch management is supported on Microsoft Windows. The support for Linux and Mac OS is moving into Q3 and Q4 of this year. And the next slide here, just another shot of the patch management, deploying typical patch jobs. So one thing I didn't know is that with the cloud agents, you can create and associate tags. So tags are going to be the way that you organize your assets. Likewise, if we're setting up patch jobs, I might want to push out patches to a certain group of assets before, I push it out to the masses. Reason being, I've got a development environment and then I've got a production environment. So, I've categorized these 10 machines to be a part of dev, and I'm going to push all the patches out to them immediately. As long as testing and validation goes well, then I'm going to go ahead and schedule the patch job and push it out, to the rest of my production environment. So just a screenshot here that it does have some, more traditional patch-like features. If you're familiar with IBM Big Fix or, Microsoft SCCM, we're not just hitting the patch button, and everybody's automatically updated. We can schedule different jobs and push them out as need be. All right, VMDR, so vulnerability management, detection, and response. So essentially, Qualys heard its customers loud and clear, partners included, hey, all these solutions and applications are great. What would be even better is if we could bundle all these different apps into a single solution and put a name on it. So that's exactly what they did. So VMDR, it's a single app per se. It covers discovery, vulnerability management, detection, and response. They also simplified the quoting, right? So it's completely asset based. So back in the day, it was, we'd sit down, we'd go through a demo. The customer would say, hey, this is a great product, great solution. Where do we go from here? All right. So the typical questions were, how many cloud agents do we need? How many IP addresses do we need for vulnerability management? The list went on. They really simplified it here, and they just said, hey, give me the asset count. We'll put vulnerability management all into one solution, and make the quoting process easier. So a little bit more details of VMDR, what's included, and I did my best here trying to align my text color with the image. So the asset management portion of it, you get asset discovery. Now that's both known and unknown. So, we want to deploy a passive sensor that can scan, devices that are attempting to connect to my network. So these are my unknown or my rogue devices. We definitely want to take inventory of what's, known and unknown there. Asset inventory, one of the applications that we dove into there previously. Asset categorization. So again, assigning tags, organizing your assets. That'll come into play, for vuln management, threat protection, patch detection and response. So the vulnerability management, configuration assessment and certificate assessment, I didn't really touch, but config assessment is a pretty big feature because if anyone's familiar with CIS, they put out a lot of benchmarks to harden your devices. So deploying VMDR, they're giving you access to the config assessment module where you can actually go and scan your devices against those CIS benchmarks, which will spit out a report and make recommendations, where they pass or fail. So you can backtrack afterwards and use the report to harden the device. So that's also included, inside of VMDR. Continuous monitoring, we didn't touch that one too much. So use case here, continuous monitoring. Let's say I've got a DMZ with web servers inside. They typically listen on TCP ports 80 and 443. So I got a notification from CM, said, hey, there's been a new TCP port spun up, 31337. That's something for me to look into. So I get an immediate notification that one of these servers being monitored has had a new TCP port opened up on the system, right? This is out of the ordinary. It shouldn't happen. There's no reason for a new TCP port. It's either a new piece of software, something was compromised, there was a backdoor installed on the server, immediately something to look into, right? So I can hit that red button, I can kill off the network connectivity to the DMZ, I can ask somebody to log into the VMs and physically, look over the console, hey, see what's going on this system, right? Something's out of the ordinary. And then threat protection, which we covered previously. Now, patch detection here, as part of the response, I put a star next to it. So out of the box, VMDR, it has the ability to deploy patches, but by default, it actually comes with patch detection. So it will tell you what patches exist and what needs to be addressed. However, it will not give you that functionality out of the box. The reason being is that, Qualys didn't want to charge customers that weren't going to use the feature, right? If you're very fond of your SCCM deployment and you want to continue using that, hey, we're not going to go against the grain. Likewise, we're also not going to charge you for a feature you won't use. So that's one, additional question when we're quoting out VMDR. Do you need, patch remediation, or, would you like to just have the default, detection? And then down below, unlimited Qualys sensors. So again, the passive scanning, that's going to be for your asset discovery. The Qualys virtual scanners, that would be your, your on-prem virtual scanner that you're registering there up to the cloud to perform the traditional vulnerability scanning. Cloud agents, container sensors, virtual cloud agent gateway sensors. Again, these are unlimited. The keynote there is the cloud agents, right? We don't have to quote them out individually and put a number on them anymore. All right, use case scenarios. So typical questions and answers that we encounter. Do you have complete visibility of your asset inventory while the assets are on and off the network, right? So, answer being, hey, we've got no visibility. Well, protecting the unknown, that's impossible, right? Another answer, maybe we've got an Excel spreadsheet that's updated by the accounting department. Now, I know that might sound wild, but truth be told, when purchases are made, the accounting department might be responsible for tracking the inventory. So that's a high possibility. Visibility while the assets are on site. We have limited or no visibility while they're working from home. So right now, COVID-19 happened, right? There's a lot of employees, a lot of remote workforce. They had to pick up their machines and move to a home location. So what's your visibility while all this is going on? Are you deploying patches? Are you taking care of the endpoints? Are they going to return and be littered with vulnerabilities? Is there a possibility that a device could be compromised and bring malware back to the corporate network? So we definitely want to have complete visibility no matter where these assets reside. How do you discover and manage your vulnerabilities? If the answer is what's a vulnerability, right? I know it sounds silly, but not everybody has an on-site security staff. Annual penetration testing, right? This isn't often enough. If you're relying on an annual pen test where a vendor comes in, does a vuln scan, performs exploitation, and you address them then, it's not often enough. The existing solution we have, it doesn't provide ongoing management. So this is a common answer. And in all honesty, I'm a really big fan of Tenable, Nessus Professional, as a standalone vulnerability scanner. Likewise, to use that in building a VM program, you would have to conduct manual scans, spit out the reports, go through the remediation process, and then, to verify, what was and wasn't successfully remediated, you'd have to scan again, and compare the reports one for one. So, not very effective for, simplifying or streamlining an ongoing management program. What is your patch management strategy, right? No automated patch management exists. Okay, we can definitely get some tools, in your hands to perform that. Or we have an on-prem solution. So meaning, as assets are on-prem, right, they're communicating with the patch server, patches are being applied, it's a well-oiled machine. However, if the employees travel remote, maybe they don't receive patches at all. Likewise, if they're remote, maybe they receive patches, but it's over a VPN. So, that might not scale very well. Maybe we're chewing up way too much VPN traffic, the firewall can't handle it. Not enough bandwidth, whatever the case may be. How do you prioritize patching? So this is a good one because, like I said, Qualys is very unique with this threat protection module. First come, first serve, or we'll get to it when we get to it. Not much of a strategy there, right? Or prioritizing. It's not a true risk-based approach. All at once when a maintenance window is scheduled. So we take care of our patching. We put a list together. We typically schedule maintenance windows. This might be quarterly, could be monthly, whatever the case may be. Again, it's not a very effective risk-based approach because it's not going to address, a zero-day exploit where, it's really mission critical to know which assets are impacted and take care of them appropriately. One other thing to note too, I didn't list it here, but a common occurrence is hey, we've got a small IT department. My guys, they wear many hats. They're the Swift's Army knife, if you will. So they're my network engineers, security engineers, my wireless engineers. They're my all-in-one guys. To build out a program and kind of piecemeal everything together, would be a very tedious task. So how can we, again, simplify and streamline things? Qualys is a great fit there. I hate to use the old terminology of single pane of glass, but that's exactly what it is. You've got a single solution that has all this intelligence. You have the ability to push the patches directly from it. You're constantly, monitoring and tracking all the remediation data. So you've got it right there in the windows. You can see, what was addressed and what's outlying, or what needs to be addressed yet. All the tools are very easy to use, and they fit a small shop very nicely. All right, so we're nearing the end here. If you're interested in more events, check out the website. So we've been doing a lot of webinars, roundtable discussions. There's a lot of recorded sessions, saved in the events section there. So feel free to browse them. And thank you very much for your time. We're going to move to Q&A if there's any immediate questions. One thing I wanted to note is, again, we're just scratching the surface of what Qualys has to offer here. Hopefully this was all meaningful. If there's really technical questions or, follow-up, feel free to reach out to me directly. We can definitely, schedule some time, put a conference together and, address it separately. And I'm getting into the question section here. There we are. All right, well, I don't see many questions rolling in. So once again, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate everyone joining. And, once again, feel free to reach out to me directly. We can definitely, schedule a time to go over more details. Can also provide a, a live demonstration of the Qualys products.